welcome. You're at the War Room. Roger Stone with my colleague Owen Scheuer. First of all, our warmest best wishes and a get well message to Senator Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul was savagely attacked by an intruder in his own home. Very little more is known about that attack on a United States senator. Now, Rand Paul is without question the highest ranking liberty-oriented enemy of the deep state, critic of the deep state in American government. And this assault on him is alarming. We wish he and his wife, Kelly, Godspeed for their safety and for the recovery. Reportedly a ruptured lung, broken ribs. These are serious problems. So, and those facts coming a little later, early reports minimized the senator's injuries. So we wish the senator the very best. Washington has been shaken this week by Donna Brazil, the veteran African-American Democratic Party activist who chaired Al Gore's campaign for president and who would later chair the DNC in the lurch after Deborah Wasserman Schultz became too hot when her emails leaked through WikiLeaks, first revealing the effort by the Clintons to have the DNC cheat to the benefit of Senator Hillary Clinton, or I should say former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Senator Bernie Sanders. What is not known is why Bernie Sanders would go on to endorse Hillary. Indeed, 3 out of every 10 Sanders voters ended up with Donald Trump on the basis of a commonality regarding trade and war and peace issues. In a way, both Sanders and Trump were outsiders, and Trump needed to pick up among these progressive voters who recognized that Hillary was a crony capitalist who offered only more of the same. We also know that Bernie Sanders, to the surprise of many, because he clearly knew about the cheating of the DNC, would go on to quietly endorse Hillary. We now know that Senator Sanders and his wife formed a media placement firm which quite legally placed the advertising for much of the senator's whirlwind, multi-million-dollar but grassroots progressive campaign for president. I stress that none of this is illegal, but all of it is very enriching, which can be very disillusioning when one's supporters are socialists, but you are clearly engaging in rampant capitalism. This explains why the Sanders have been able to buy palatial vacation homes in several locations. You old socialist, you, Bernie. In any event, Brazil has rocked the political world when she said that she feared for her own life after the assassination of Seth Rich. She admits in her book to drawing the shades, worrying about whether she was being surveilled by the same people who did Seth Rich in. Now, one only need to go to the stunning interview with Julian Assange, in which he is asked repeatedly about Seth Rich and sources. And he goes out of his way to say 3 times that sources for WikiLeaks are in great danger for their lives. And at the end of the interview, he, after avoiding the direct question of whether Mr. Rich was a source, he posts a $25,000 reward for information that leads to the apprehension of whoever it was who murdered Mr. Rich. If Assange was not saying that Rich was his source of the DNC documents, what was he saying? All of this is quite clear to me. I want to point out that now is a superb time for you to recognize that we here at InfoWars don't have the luxury of multi-billion-dollar backstage globalist financiers and hedge fund managers writing us fat checks to further their and our political agenda. We are essentially listener financed by your going to the Infowars.com store, where I want to point out that the Clintons' war on women, the definitive data dump on the Clinton dynasty that tries today, even today, to claw their way back, is on this site at a terrific price. This is the definitive story of the Clintons. And while you're there, 50% off Brain Force. This is a product that I myself find gives mental clarity, mental energy, kinds of helps you organize your mental thinking. It is unthinkable that I would do the War Room without popping a couple capsules a couple hours ago to get focused. So I don't know how Alex Jones does these prices. I don't know how he slashes this deep, but when I ask him, he says volume, and the Info Warriors, and this stuff is moving. Now, you want to go to the auto ship program, which I think makes a lot of sense. You not only lock in a great price, but you never run out. The thing about these all-natural supplements is that they build up over time. Do not take beyond the recommended dosage, by the way. Many people in the community think that if a little is good, more is better. Take the recommended dose when there is one, and you will see why literally thousands of people have posted testimonials over these products. Alex Jones is very rigorous about this. There's nothing that goes up on this site that is not only fully tested, but the best of the genre. Super Male Vitality is superior to every male formula out there. Michael Zimmerman personally swears by this in a mix with Anthroplex, which is also up today at an extraordinarily discounted price. And the synergy of these products for any man is, I think, extraordinary. A high concentration of zinc here, which ups the immunity and is good for a man's internal plumbing. So I strongly recommend these products to keep us moving forward. We are the tip of the spear. We don't have a Soros who's going to fund this, folks. And Alex Jones walked me through the new studio in construction when I was in Austin last week. And I must tell you, it is going to be state of the art. It's an expansion like you have never seen. Even the new backdrop on the Alex Jones show in Vital Blue, Alex loved the shot so much I think we froze it. It is the expansion is extraordinary, and this programming to 10 hours a day of live programming, and the many voices of InfoWars, including David Knight in the mornings with the news, which I did when I was in Austin last week. It is extraordinary that this expansion is going forward because we broke so many stories in the last month. I mean, we were the one who identified Paul Singer as the funder of the secret dossier. We were the ones who broke the story of the JFK documents being declassified. Again and again, now we have predicted that the next move in Saudi Arabia will be when the young new heir apparent prince cracks down on the most radical Islamics inside the mosques in a military strike. So stay tuned. You're at the War Room. We're going to talk about what's going on in Saudi. We're going to talk about the president's trip to Asia. We're going to talk about Wilbur Ross and the move for a 25th Amendment play on Trump. We're going to talk about Mr. Mueller, the special prosecutor, all of it right here on The War Room. I'm Roger Stone, Owen Schroyer riding shotgun with me, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and you're in The War Room. Still riding shotgun with us is my colleague Owen Schroyer. And I broke in last night, went immediately to InfoWars with a late special report indicating the upheaval in Saudi Arabia as a consolidation of power, essentially a purge by the heir apparent son of the current ruler, Mohammed bin Salman. Salman is a ruthless hardliner, and this is party housekeeping. Out are the old guard, who were particularly well connected in the Bush era, rival princes, other heavy-duty financiers, including the well-known Prince Sheikh, I should say, Alwit bin Talal, who is, of course, the majority shareholder and partner of Rupert Murdoch at Fox News. Mr. Alwit bin Talal has been an outspoken critic of Donald Trump and has many deep corporate connections and investments in the United States, functioning as a billionaire investor. Sources tell InfoWars that the new de facto leader's next plan is to use the military to strike and enter the mosques, to round up and probably liquidate the most radical Islamic clerics there, who the regime believes are plotting with Iran. At the same time, the new leader consolidates power. It's interesting that Donald Trump had tangled with Al-Walid Talal during the campaign, calling him the dopey prince, as you see there on your screen. The other piece of intrigue, as the president moves his way across Asia, is the order of his agenda there. CNN got caught purposely red-handed, making it appear that while feeding koi fish with the president of Japan, a symbolic act, that Trump became impatient and dumped his entire box of fish food into the pond. What they didn't show is the president merely followed suit after his predecessor, after the Japanese leader did the exact same thing. So they get caught in an act of more fake news. This is the kind of symbolic act that presidents go through, and you can see the president is doing it with a bonhomie and kind of a wistful attitude. This is part of the stagecraft, the statecraft of any political trip. But CNN, of course, edits this to make the president look bad, because CNN is fake news. Unfortunately, recently, my saying so on my Twitter feed have made me another martyr in the fight in which I join Milo and others, where the liberal intelligentsia and the tech left seek to strangle my First Amendment rights. For reasons that are beyond me, imbeciles like Keith Olbermann are allowed to drop the F-bomb with a plume. Their insults often reach the level of harassment under their own wackadoodle guidelines. So why his Twitter feed remains and why mine has been suspended is a matter that I guess we'll learn more about in the federal courts. I've been very heartened by the number of not only high-powered telecommunications attorneys interested in taking what they see as a very valid case, and some deep pockets competitors to these folks who are certainly interested in underwriting a lawsuit on the merits. There are First Amendment issues. There are antitrust issues, and so on. So you can still follow my antics at here at InfoWars, of course, where we post all of our best videos and our breaking news reports. And you can go to the Stone Cold Truth at Facebook or the Twitter feed. While it is not my feed, it is controlled by people who cover my exploits extensively. It is also important to note that as the president moves to Asia, there is still a sticking point in the in the ointment, and that is the repeated requests by the Chinese leader for the extradition of a Chinese criminal named Miles Kwok, who is a former Chinese intelligence agent who spied in this country, most likely was flipped, and has committed enormous financial crimes in China. We know that the President Xi brought this up at Mar-a-Lago. It was brought up again on the margins at the G20 conference, and it is sure to come up when the president sits with the Chinese. We know that Dr. Henry Kissinger himself has carried a message from the Chinese, who he knows well, to the president, and that the president has assured the Chinese that consistent with U.S. law, Mr. Kwok, who was a bundler for Hillary Clinton and seems to be very closely affiliated with some radical Islamic interests, would be extradited according to the law. He is not in the United States legally. He is currently seeking asylum here. So this has risen to the point where I'm told it can be an impediment to the cooperation between China and the United States on North Korea. Now, the president has already achieved extraordinary progress with the Chinese, who have been more than malleable in letting the little rocket man know that if he attacks the United States, he's on his own, and that they will not be on his side. They'll most likely be on the other side, our side. This is something Barack Obama could not do by threatening them. I think Donald Trump has said to them, look, stop manipulating our currency, stop stealing our technology, stop these one-sided trade deals. Let's do trade deals that are good for both of us. We'll both prosper. Our countries will get richer together, and you can come in out of the cold. I think the Chinese are responding to Donald Trumpian deal-making. It is only democracy and capitalism that has saved their economy at this point anyway, at least an approximation of it, because communism does not work, and even the Chinese know that. You're here on The War Room. I'm Roger Stone, and we have so much more to talk about. I'll be back right in a moment at The War Room. I'm Roger Stone, back again on The War Room with my colleague Owen Schroyer. Owen, did you see the stories regarding the Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, thought to be a true Trump loyalist?
Well, I'm not sure what stories you're alluding to. If you're alluding to the Paradise Papers, then I've got a stack of that right now, but I'm not sure if that's what you're alluding to right now, Roger.
Well, I think it emanates, I think, from those very papers. The New York Times alleges that Wilbur Ross, who is a billionaire investor, a friend of Donald Trump's, who serves quite ably as his Secretary of Commerce, here is a cabinet member who was actually for Donald Trump. It's almost a miracle, but it is alleged that he had certain Russian holdings. It does not absolutely clear that he was aware of this or that he was manipulating them. It is intimated that he hid them. Why now? The answer to this is what I still believe is something that is entertained by the power elite and very much in their plans, a 25th Amendment play against this president. Notice that you have Senator Corker from Tennessee constantly questioning the president's mental stability and fitness. This goes back to predictions I made on the Alex Jones show. They are going to try to make the case somehow that he is non-compos mentis. And the 25th Amendment requires the support of a majority of the cabinet plus the vice president. Let's separate those questions for a moment, if we can. I have begun an official scorecard on the cabinet in terms of who among the Trump cabinet are Bush quislings or for some other reason could be cross-pressured into supporting the removal of the duly elected president. Wilbur Ross goes firmly in the catalog of those who would stick with the president through thick and thin. certainly since there is no substantial basis for a 25th Amendment takedown. I point out to you, and you may have seen this, Owen, on the Alex Jones show, both Jeb Bush and a U.S. Senator I can't name, but one of the leading rhinos told a high-powered Republican operative who I trust that Trump would be gone by December, early January at the latest. So something's definitely afoot.
So are you thinking that maybe there was a controlled release of these Paradise Papers in order to, on the back end, damn Wilbur Ross and ultimately damn the Trump cabinet back to this whole Russian collusion thing, that they've literally not been able to get anything? And again, the whole thing was for Trump, yet they can't get anything on Trump. They keep trying to dig up things on his cabinet. Are you thinking that, we know that they're ultimately collapsing. Are you saying that they're now pulling out all the stops, including selling each other out to try to stump the Trump right now?
Well, look, I'm working on a major report on what I see as a 25th Amendment play here. Let's go to the question of the vice president. Mike Pence has been very circumspect and very supportive publicly of vice president. But we know from reporting this week that when the Billy Bush tape hit, he initially would not take Trump's phone calls, and he sent him a letter saying he didn't know what to do, but he didn't want to talk to him at that point. It is that point that I believe there was discussion with the Republican National Chairman, Reince Priebus, about Pence replacing Trump on the ticket. Let's be very clear. Donald Trump never had any intention of dropping out of the race. He's not a quitter. He's a fighter. He was pretty low. He realized that it was not helpful, this locker room talk, but he correctly made the point that this was a matter of words, his words, and Bill Clinton's deeds. He'd actually grabbed them by their private parts, as it might be said. So it was, it didn't have the devastating impact on his candidacy it might have had. But it is interesting that the Clintons have, as you know, more recently tried to revive this meme without much success.
Well, it seems to me that the left is trying to cover all of their tracks and then essentially double back down on the establishment, this time being it Obama and Biden and not the Clintons, and trying to wage any sort of war they can to try to legitimate searching for the Trump-Russia collusion for so long, spending all that money. We know that there's now a judicial watch request into the actual receipts of how much money is being spent on the Trump-Russia collusion investigation. But then on the insider end of it, Roger, you've got Donna Brazil selling out the Clintons. You've got other media outlets saying the Clintons, it's time to just go away. So I'm thinking that they're trying to essentially put Humpty Dumpty back together again right now because they know that Trump is a total defeat of the establishment.
Look, I think Donna Brazil is an honorable woman. I've clashed with her, I've disagreed with her, but she's always been courteous and sportsmanlike, and I actually like her. I think she's an honest Democrat who cares about her party. She is known for her competence and her capability, which is why the party was forced to draw on her after Deborah Wasserman Schultz literally flamed out. And I point out to you in Brazil's book, she talks about the driver and the Escalade and the bodyguards and the entourage and the other perks paid for by the Democratic Party for Chairwoman Wasserman Schultz. I wonder if she declared any income tax on any of that activity. So I think that she is saying what a lot of professional Democrats think, Owen, which is we need to turn the page on the Clintons if we want to have any chance to come back as a party. Bill and Hillary Clinton are the penicillin-resistant syphilis of the American body politic. They're an infection. The voters have had it with them. Hillary exudes phoniness. She's not even capable of sounding minimally sincere. She is haughty, she's angry, she's bitter, she's scorned, and she thought she was entitled to this because it was her turn. And she was mortified by her defeat by this rookie nobody, Barack Obama, from out of left field. And she got humiliated a second time with the most brilliant salesman in American history, Donald J. Trump. Out-hustled, out-thought, outworked, out-debated, and defeated. And they just cannot accept their crushing, ignominious defeat. This whole Russia inquiry, as you know, I believe is born out of revenge.
Yeah, it's a total nothing burger. It's a total, absolutely nothing to it. But it's amazing because Obama is actually getting a lot of the blame for the reason the Democrats went broke, which is the excuse as to why Hillary had to take over the party and then rig the campaign against Bernie. But I guess my question is, and I imagine the Democrats have already had to face this question, can the Democrat Party actually fundraising without the expert money laundering tactics, the expert campaign fundraising tactics of the Clintons?
Yeah, they really can. I mean, Barack Obama, in all honesty, worked this like an organ, and he was able to build extraordinary mass-based, low-dollar fundraising, something other than he, only Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan have ever been able to do. The Democrats, under the Clintons, can raise all they need.
All right, that's Roger Stone. We got one more segment with Roger, so don't go anywhere. Me and Roger have matching ties on today. You know who else wore the blue tie today? President Trump.
I'm Roger Stone, and you're right back at the right place. You're at the War Room here at Infowars.com. When I was in Austin recently, I had the privilege of having an extraordinary steak dinner with the entire Jones family. And I noticed that Alex Jones's 15-year-old son had put on an extraordinary amount of muscle since I saw him only 6 months ago. I asked him what he attributed this to, and he told me that he was mixing Caveman with a whey protein supplement to pack on the muscle, and he was working out hard. And let me tell you, it showed. He went from being a boy to a young man. It was most impressive. Now, Caveman right now is at 16% off, was an extraordinary savings on this exclusive formula, which is really kind of like a building block. And when mixed in a shake with whey protein, any kind of high quality protein drink, take your pick, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, whatever you like, is really extraordinary for somebody who is working out hard in the gym and trying to pack on some muscle. I've been there. I still hit the gym 3 times a week. I just can't lift quite as heavy as I used to. So I recommend you go to the Infowars.com store, take advantage of this and our other extraordinary specials. Brain Force at 50% off. This is now is the time to stock up. This is the must-have from the site, if you ask me. It really helps me get focused and organized for these shows. It gives me the mental energy to, not only turn out a print piece for Infowars.com, but also to send you these special reports as we did yesterday on Donna Brazil. Donna Brazil, we now know, feared for her life after Seth Rich was assassinated. That means she knew that he had been assassinated for political reasons. An extraordinary turn of events. We also have what I think will turn out to be historic, and that is so much we have learned about these JFK documents, Owen. We now know that that many of the so-called conspiracy theories that were alleged were in fact true. We know that there was definitively now more than one shooter. We know that there was definitively a bullet hole in the windshield, which distracts from the cockamamie single bullet theory. We learn of the CIA's prior knowledge of and handling of Oswald. We know that the Oswald who shows up in Mexico City at the Soviet and Cuban consulate speaks broken Russian, yet we are told repeatedly by the CIA and the FBI that Oswald's Russian is flawless. The man who went to Mexico City is noted in a memo by J. Edgar Hoover, who says another man is clearly using Oswald's identity, his words. He can be heard saying to the president that the man they have seen in Mexico City does not meet the physical description of Oswald. All of this learned from the recent data dump done at the direction of President Donald Trump under the JFK Records Act. Now, it's interesting that they threw in this salacious material on Dr. Martin Luther King, alleging orgies, alleging that he had an affair with the folk singer Joan Baez, which would have made Dr. King and Bob Dylan Eskimo brothers, but we're not going to go there. But it is extraordinary that they most likely throw in the salacious material to distract from the murder of a sitting president. We knew that J. Edgar Hoover was obsessed with King. We knew they were violating his civil rights with wiretaps. We knew they were obsessed with the fact that he had people with some communist connections in his entourage, but there was never any evidence that Dr. King was in fact an active communist. Strom Thurmond, were he alive today, would probably disagree with me. So would Jesse Helms, but I think they are wrong. It is Dr. King who thanked Vice President Richard Nixon for rounding up the votes to pass the 1958 Civil Rights Act when the Democrats bailed out on a proposal, with most of the Southern barons refusing to stand up, of course, for civil rights. So it is through these document releases that we're beginning to get a more focused view of history. There you see then Congressman Jacob Javits over the corner, over the shoulder of Dr. Reed. Also next to him, George Meany of the AFL-CIO, I believe. There's President Johnson shaking Dr. King's hand. So it is extraordinary that what we have learned so far. Additionally, we learned that Congressman Lyndon Johnson, pre-congressman, was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. We know of a Surgeon General report that indicates that the president was shot from the front through the throat, a bullet wound, of course, that was obviated by the tracheotomy that was performed to conceal that real source of that wound. 13 doctors and nurses have now identified a blowout wound in the rear of JFK's head the size of a grapefruit, something that disappears by the time they get him to Bethesda Medical Center. So the conspiracy theories turn out to be conspiracy facts. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy analyst. I'm a conspiracy realist. Yes, I doubt that what the government tells me every time is the truth. So what did you find most interesting about the JFK dump, Owen?
Well, you just highlighted a lot of it. The one thing that you didn't mention that I thought was very interesting and revealing as well, especially considering what we see in the media now, inside the documents, it was admitted that the government, the CIA, the FBI had implanted at least 40 people in the media, confirming what we found out from Operation Mockingbird, that the CIA implants people in the media. Some people say Anderson Cooper is the type of cutout that you would expect in the modern days for that. And, back to the Martin Luther King thing. It's interesting, Roger. Martin Luther King, I believe it came out in a civil lawsuit that it was actually the government that murdered Martin Luther King. So it's just weird, the whole relationship there, why they would put this out there. But my question is, coming back to the JFK bombshell that really should be the story here, when will they rewrite the history books, Roger? When will young Americans learning American history be taught that there were multiple shooters in the JFK assassination? When will they be taught that the CIA had put people in the media to control the narrative? When will they be taught the real truth about that day. Are the history books ever going to be rewritten, or are we just going to kind of ignore that?
Well, the point is we are rewriting it even as we speak. The fact that we have this platform and we're able to document an alternative narrative to any event in history means that the tide is turning. See, the government cover-ups of all these major events, whether it's Iran-Contra, whether it's the JFK assassination, whether it's Watergate, whether it's the Bay of Pigs, whether it's the Iraq War, the key to all of this is a docile, monolithic mainstream media that doesn't report the truth. And when there were only 3 networks, and then later 2 fledgling cable news networks, controlling the narrative was very simple. The advent of the internet and places like Infowars.com have led to a robust, vibrant alternative media and communications network in which millions of researchers can go online now and look at these documents and pick through them and find all kinds of nuggets that the government didn't tell us. I have a special report coming up on Wednesday on information uncovered about the Bay of Pigs. It was not as we were told by either the mainstream media or the CIA, and John Kennedy was unjustly blamed in that conflict, as new information will prove. So we're learning new things all the time. One thing we'd like you to learn is that we here have to depend completely on listener and viewer support. We really need you to help us fuel the expansion of the studio here, the expanded program, the refinement of the War Room. Owen Scheuer and I are working very hard, but we can't do it without your financial support. So please, these prices are extraordinary. Whether it's Brain Force, Biome Defense, or DNA Force, these kind of deep discounts keep the resistance vibrant. Many thanks.